want to start by acknowledging and thanking Shmuley and Debbie for their friendship. I want to let you know that in the Boteach household, one can always find an understanding ear, and one can find children and grandchildren being raised as mensches. The Boteach children show their values by serving in the IDF, by joyfully honoring their parents, by teaching shiurim, lessons on Jewish learning, and by racing around on Manhattan streets to find the missing members of the minyan so that a family friend can say Kaddish. Shmuley provokes, Shmuley agitates. He is always forcing me to think about what's on his mind. And he gets things done. This week, I'm proud to announce that we will be finalizing the transfer of my parents' Beit Zipporah centers from the Wiesel Foundation to Wiesel, the Women's International Zionist Organization. These centers, which were named after my Aunt Zipporah, who perished in the Shoah, help the Ethiopian community in Israel through education, advocacy, and love to become the full members of Israeli society they have every right to be. This strategic alliance will allow my mother's important and impactful pioneering efforts to join a powerful network on the ground in Israel and to remain strong for many decades to come. This partnership is the product of many terrific and good-hearted people, especially Hannah and Simon Falek, but it is Shmuley who had the vision for this partnership and drove the execution, and my mother and I are deeply grateful for that, and more broadly, to have him in our lives. Thank you, Shmuley. Now, before I talk to you about our honorees tonight for the first Elie Wiesel Award at the World Values Network, before I talk to you about Matthew or Derek, I need to talk to you about my father, and I need to tell you a story. There was a time when I could not see clearly what I had in my father. It doesn't matter why. I loved him, but I saw his quiet voice as weakness, not strength. I did not want to be like him, so I felt, so I said, and so I acted. And it was at this time, when I had never been more distant from my father, when I had wanted nothing more than to be free of my family's history and its weight, that the Lubavitcher Rebbe gave my father a blessing. One day, the Rebbe said, you will be proud of your son. He will be proud of you, and then you will both be proud of me. I just want to say that I grow prouder of my father with the passage of each and every day. And I hope that the Rebbe and my father are carrying on their grand philosophical discussions and enjoying each other's company up above. Now let me tell you about my father as I see him now. My father was a builder of bridges across generations. Through his love, reaching both forward and backward through time, I feel connected not only to him, but to my grandparents as well. He was a builder of bridges across cultures and faiths. He taught and learned from Hindu and Muslim students. He broke bread with cardinals and atheists. He valued friendship as an ideal above all others. He had a way of seeing the best in people that brought their better natures to the surface. And he pursued his friendships from a position of inner strength and confidence derived from knowing where he came from. Throughout his entire life, he worked with a picture of his childhood home in Siget above his desk. I want to talk to you tonight about these themes, of the things that connect and separate fathers and sons, of the bridges to friendship and the spaces they must cross, and of seeing through to the best in people. And I want to talk to you about my father's voice, which could thunder for justice in front of world leaders, but could also, in its quietness, cause even his most skeptical adversary to lean in and listen carefully. Tonight is about that quiet aspect of my father's voice. about the wonderful and warm person he was, not when he was on the world stage, but when he was engaged in everyday interactions with people. His students, his friends, the taxi driver, an attending physician, the person he just met next to him on the plane. Whether you came up to tell him that you admired him or disagreed with him, he always asked for your name, and he would always take the time to hear your story. We are indebted tonight to the Washington Post's Eli Saslow for his strong and authentic journalism in sharing a story, in sharing the story of Matthew Stevenson and Derek Black. There is so much my father would have responded to in this story had he lived to hear it. It is the story of an unlikely friendship, of two young men who took a risk in getting to know a stranger across an unfathomable gulf. It is the story of how the unexpected can happen when you engage with people rather than shutting them off. And has it ever been easier than in 2017 to surround ourselves with people who only think what we already think, when you can unfriend someone so easily on Facebook for saying something that offends you? When they first encountered each other, Matthew was a Jewish student on campus who had the bravery to host Shabbat dinners in a place where there were none. Matthew is very much the product of his parents. His father believes in and taught Jewish teachings of self-transformation at the Gala Center. He will undergo heart surgery this week. We wish him a refuah shlema, a complete and speedy recovery. Matthew's mother, who sadly passed away last year, believed fervently in service to others. And so Matthew came to college with a strong base of confidence and values. He reached out to other groups and faiths, and those without either, and made his table a focal point for fellowship and dialogue. And then a chance encounter involving country music. Yes, I finally have a reason to be grateful for country music. Brought him and Derek together. And he saw in Derek a soul who seemed isolated, who had grown up through no fault of his own in an environment where hatred was woven into the fabric of daily life. Derek had been groomed to inherit a legacy, and he was already attracting a following due to his strong, innate qualities as a leader. But Derek sought a lower profile on campus. Away from home for the first time, he was determined to pursue rational thought wherever it led him. And after meeting Matthew and his friends and becoming close to people he had been taught to hate, he wrestled with what he thought and felt and furiously considered what it would mean to break with his past. Words, my father wrote, can sometimes, in rare moments, attain the quality of deeds. As Matthew, Derek, and friends exchanged words and ideas with each other, could there have been a more important conversation going on in the world at that moment? Think of all the barriers that prevent us from opening ourselves up to someone else's ideas, the preconceived notions we can have about each other. I know I have mine. What are yours? Try this one on for size. All Trump voters supported the alt-right, so I can't talk to them. Orthodox Jews are taught what to think. How could they possibly understand me? This one you'll recognize. Zionists can't be feminists. They don't belong in this movement. Matthew and Derek broke through those walls to find out what was on the other side. They broke through the labels and preconceptions and found nothing more and nothing less than each other, fellow human beings. I find what happened next and what happened after that to be just as profound. Derek took the unbelievably brave step of recognizing his friendship with Matthew and recognizing that hatred no longer had a place in his heart, and posting a powerful letter to a liberal online publication, he publicly distanced himself from the views he had been taught since birth. He distanced himself from Stormfront. He distanced himself from white supremacy. He distanced himself from hatred. The reckoning was immediate. Derek wrote me in an exchange last week that his father experienced his only son's break from the white supremacist movement like a death. When he reached out to his family after the article, he was no longer welcome, except his father still wanted to see him. His father ignored the objections of the rest of his family to be with his son. Derek wrote, "It was uncomfortable at times, but we had spent years talking about politics, science, the news, philosophy, and we could still do that. I was now on the other side, but I was still the same person." Does Derek's father know what he has in his son? Derek's father should be so deeply proud of him for his courage, for his humility, for his love. I am deeply moved that they still talk, that Derek's father loves his son more than he loves his ideology. And although I could not disagree more with the hateful views Don Black has promoted, I am inspired by the son who is a credit to his father's name. And now, many years later, for me, having benefited from the Lubavitcher Rebbe's blessing, I want to gently hand that blessing over to the Black family in the hopes that it will find a home there. I pray tonight that Derek's father will see the true value of his son more quickly than the decades it took me to see the value in my father. I pray he will join his son in renouncing hatred. I pray that when that moment happens, Derek will be proud of his father will be proud of him, and they will both be proud of Eli Wiesel, Zichrono Livracha, a man who deeply believed in peace, in dialogue, and in the love between fathers and sons, the man in whose name we give this award tonight. Please join me in raising a glass to our honorees of the World Values Network First Eli Wiesel Award. This world needs more of their leadership. May they inspire us and others for many years to come. To Matthew, to Derek, and most importantly, to their friendship, L'chaim.